Very much, Trito. Good morning and welcome, fellow Toastmasters. Obviously, there's no guests here, but there's just all of us, which are a guest to each other's club, really, if you want to look at it that way. Today, when we talk about the hybrid committee, we have met several times over the last TLIs to talk about the importance of when you're doing a hybrid meeting to make sure that people are included on that, how to set up your cameras, etc. Today, we're not going to talk so much about, what is a hybrid meeting and how to go about doing it, but in particular, we're going to be talking about specific roles that we would think an open house should have in order to have a successful open house. And as you've probably heard throughout the morning, a open house is not your typical Toastmasters meeting. It is more of almost, if you want to call it, a choreographed stage production, because you're wanting to put your best foot forward. You're wanting to make sure that the experience for your guests is the best that it can be. And in order to do that, you're going to need to have some special people who are running this meeting almost in the background. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Nicole and I are probably going to be doing a lot of the chatting. Ray is our wonderful technical guru, so that when Nicole and I go, it's a really good question, Ray, how about stepping in? We're going to call on Ray to get doing that. Nicole, I think you are running the slides. Is that correct? You can come off mute. It's okay. Or maybe they muted
you. Mean you're letting me speak?
I am. See, now the wonderful thing about it is Nicole has got years and years of experience of being on the other side of the camera when we talk about being in a hybrid. She's effectively what we call the talking head. So I'm going to let Nicole have just a couple of minutes to reiterate what that experience is like and what your guests might experience when they are at an open house. So Nicole, tell us all the wonderful experiences that you've had as the talking head.
Doug, where do I start?
At the beginning.
Forget about open houses. Like Doug said, I used to be a talking head sitting on a laptop. I felt like Max Headroom. For those of you who get that reference, I know I'm dating myself, but hey, I'm no spring chicken. I would attend a meeting. I live in Ontario. I belong to a great club in District 96 called Speak Your Mind. Got to toot the club. And I moved out here, but I was still connected to the district. I was a district administration manager. I had to be involved with a club. And the club decided, well, let's just get Nicole to come on. Back in those days, it wasn't Zoom. It was, I can't even remember now. One of them online, you can chat with people things, but it wasn't Zoom. And I would just a computer sitting in the audience. And if I wasn't facing the speaker, I couldn't see them. And then secondly, if I was sitting next to, let's say, Darren Frew, who I love, I'm just hearing Darren Frew chat. I'm not even hearing the speaker. Other times, I would miss out on all that banter amongst the audience, that Darren would be chatting with JD or Myrna or Georgina, and I couldn't be involved. Thankfully, usually at the break, somebody would pick up my head and they would walk me around and I could say hello to everybody in the audience. But honestly, Doug, there were times I think I could have just zoned out. It's Friday night at 10 o'clock. I could have been asleep. I could have been watching some Star Wars movie on TV. I did feel really, really alone.
Isolated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Right. And so that's where we don't want your guests to feel like that during an open house, because there's nothing worse than coming to a Toastmasters meeting. Number one, you might not even know what Toastmasters is about. Number two, you might not even know anybody there. You might have heard about it, or you might have been invited. You never know. But the fact is that when you've got guests and they're in person, we all know what those types of open houses are like. Everybody is looking at it and we're greeting people at the door. We're mixing, we're matching, we're introducing them to some of our execs, and it's all one big happy party before we get the meeting started. But it's a whole different animal when we're talking about online. And all of a sudden, all these little pictures are showing up on the screen, and everybody's just kind of like waiting for a meeting to start. And this is where we talk about how to actually run an open house as a hybrid open house. So if we can take the first slide, we'll give you guys kind of an idea of what it is that we're going to talk about today. Number one, the biggest thing I want to talk to you guys about is do not double up on your roles. And how many times have we had a meeting where we're kind of short on roles and somebody's going to take the timer and the grammarian, or they're going to be the table topics master and they're going to be the inspirator. The roles that we're going to talk about today need to be roles that are held. That's it. You do nothing else, because if you're trying to double up on the roles, you're not going to do a good job at this. The biggest things are the in-person Sergeant at Arms Zoom Master and the online Sergeant at Arms Zoom Master. You're going, what if we only have one Sergeant at Arms? Conscript somebody in for a second Sergeant at Arms just for this meeting. And yeah, you need to have two Zoom Masters because these people need to coordinate and talk to each other. One's going to be in the room, one's going to be online. And they need to make sure that they balance everything out.
Sounds
Nicole, is there anything more you wanted to talk about on that particular item?
I don't think so. I'm just going to reiterate, though, that these roles can be very technical. So keep that in mind when if you have to recruit somebody on the spot. And they're also the type of roles, though, that somebody could really, if they love the technical stuff or they want to learn more about it, it's a great way to learn a new skill. And that's why we're at Toastmasters.
Yes. And the fact that, how many times do we just go, hey, let's have an open house next week?
No.
Never. That doesn't ever happen. We will spend weeks, in fact, sometimes months, setting up an open house. So when you're doing that, already get your people who are going to be, hey, who's going to be online and who's going to be in person? Because when you're looking at it, even your executive committee, as much as you might want to be there in person, you've got to have a couple of people that are online so that people are getting the understanding that, hey, this is not just, some people there and that. We're going to actually divide it out and show them during our Q&A, because most open houses will have a Q&A, when we're going online and talking to the VP of membership, or we're going in person and talking to the VP of education. It really gives that good flavor of going back and forth. So let's go into the next slide and let's jump right in here, because we're going to talk for about probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes, somewhere in there. And then we're going to open the floor to questions. If you've got questions during this time period, feel free to enter them on the chat. We will keep that monitored, and then we will start answering questions once we get through the presentation. It doesn't mean we don't want to answer it right away, but we want to make sure that we get this information. And this is all being recorded, because a lot of stuff that we're going to talk to you guys about is not going to be on these slides. If you're not here in person, you're not watching this video, you're going to miss out on some of the things we're going to explain. So the in-person Sergeant at Arms Zoom Master, you got your pre-meeting set up. Collaborate with the online Zoom Master. This means that you need to get together a day, 2 days, the week before, and talk about who's going to be doing what. How are we going to hand off when we've got questions? How do we make sure that we get an equal opportunity for the people in the room to get to talk and the people online to get a chance to talk? So we'll talk about that discussion. You want to set up your microphone, your camera, your speakers in the room. You want to position the equipment, and you want to test. So Nicole, we were playing yesterday with the Annotate tool, which is a lot of fun. If you guys haven't realized, Zoom has a whole lot of tools for you to use. So why don't you go ahead and show them on the screen some of the places that you might want to have a camera so that the online people will get the in-person experience.
Definitely. I'm just going to go into here and use my little star stamp. Say that 10 times.
Star stamp. Okay.
Maybe I want to put, so remember now, these are my in-person audience, and they're all watching this screen where the max headroom types are. So maybe, and remember, the max headrooms want to see the room. I want to see everybody in the room. So maybe I'll put if you can see it, maybe I'll put the camera over here. Or maybe I'll put the camera over there. Heck, I might even put it right underneath the screen. Or maybe there, but this one might be a bit problematic. You might not get great shots of, Ernie and Bert sitting over here, but that's the kind of things you need to look at. Is imagine that you're stand right here where this star is and say, okay, what am I seeing if I'm on the screen? And then maybe stand at the back of the room right about here and go, okay, If I'm sitting here, can I see? Maybe let me just switch this out a bit. If I'm sitting here, can I see the screen? If I'm sitting here, can I see the screen? In this setup, it's easy. Everybody can see the screen. But maybe you've got people sitting all over the place, or you've got a rectangular.
Theater style.
Exactly. These are the kind of things you need to work out. I'm just going to clear off all these drawings here, Doug. There you go.
And you want to have, one of the things that you're looking at is a camera that can actually show the room, but not the back of the speaker. So you're going to kind of want to have two cameras, one at the back that is looking at the speaker, one at the front, which is looking at the room. Or configure, if you've only got one camera, then let's kind of configure this so that you get a view of the speaker and the room. I mean, it's really hard to do that. The last thing you want to do is, turn your back to the audience, which you might be if your speaker's at the front here, or turning around and having the speaker at the far end and putting your cameras so that the people on it are seeing through the audience to the speaker. It really depends. This is what the hybrid committee is for. Give us a shout. Email us, let us know what your room configuration is. We can help you figure out where you're going to put the cameras. But it's important to do that, adjusting the view so that the person who's in the room is actually got to keep in mind, what are my viewers on camera seeing? Not only, how am I going to set the room up so that all the audience can see the speaker and the speaker can see the audience, but what is it that the online people are going to be seeing? And this is where you can even have a dry run with your online Zoom master and say, hey, listen, let's get together on a Tuesday night. I'm going to go in, I'm going to set some cameras up. We'll play around with this a little bit and see where we're going to go, assuming that you can get into your location to do that.
Right.
So this is the in-person Sergeant at Arms Zoom master. Next slide is this going to be our online, or is this going to be at the meeting?
This is at the meeting, but before we move on,
okay,
there's just one thing I wanted to point out. And it's not on the slide, but there's something called the Zoom preferences menu. You can actually test your speaker or your microphone, your speaker, and your camera before the meeting starts using the Zoom preferences menu. We will get an answer from Ray as to where the Zoom preferences menu is, because I don't know if Ray's around.
Well, of course I'm around, Nicole. If you want to spotlight me and stop sharing for a moment, I can actually take you exactly to the Zoom preferences menu.
That's perfect.
Sure. I love
so Zoom Master, add spotlight to me. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Ray.
I'm going to share my screen. And let's just make sure that I can do it and make sure that my settings have not changed after my last update. I'm going to share my screen so you're...
And close those bad... That's my problem. I have to close all those bad pages.
Oh, I have no bad pages open. All I'm showing you right now is what I'm seeing. So everybody, you should see exactly right now what I'm seeing, which is 3 speaker windows, but you should actually be seeing 6 speaker windows, 1 speaking slightly delayed from the first one. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Let's talk about how to test your meeting settings. We have general settings available. There's a little arrow next to the mute button. There's also a little arrow next to the stop video button. And either one of these will take you to the general preferences menu. Our general preferences menu has general, it has video, and this is where you can see, this is what my background looks like. The one we're talking about is your audio settings. So testing speaker. I don't know if you were able to hear that. But, I can update that. Share computer sound. Look at that. And you
I'm
can
not
also
hearing nothing.
Yep, that's okay.
It's
People
okay.
know where it is now, though.
We trust you.
And also testing microphone. So if you test your microphone, you press test mic. It records for a moment, and then when you press it again, and then it plays the what back that you just said. So that's the little quick share that I wanted to show you for how to do video settings and audio settings in Zoom.
Thank you, Ray. I'm going to go back and share my screen. I like this technology stuff. So yes, remember to check your Zoom settings for your microphone, your speaker, and your video. But before we move on, I just want to talk about the speaker a little quickly too, because back when I was Max Headroom, depending on where my laptop was, I may only, like I said, we sat in theater style. So theater style, of course, is just people row upon row. And if my computer sat next to Darren Frew, I only heard Darren Frew. So remember, you have to set up speakers in your room so that everybody in the audience in person can hear the speaker. I've also been to hybrid meetings where people are using cell phones. I don't know if you can see me holding up my cell phone because, of course, I'm sharing my screen. But cell phones, I find, are not the greatest when it comes to sound because it picks up everything. The wind, people chatting, somebody's fridge going off. I don't know. I didn't hear the speaker at all. So those are some things to keep in mind when you're testing your camera and your speakers. And now I'm going to move on.
Perfect.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, so during the meeting, the in-person sergeant at arms is controlling the room microphone. So what I mean by that is, exactly what Nicole was talking about. Background noise. So if you've got somebody online who's speaking, but the microphone is also live in the room, you could inadvertently pick up background noise in the room, which is going to be interfering with the person online who's trying to speak. Adjusting the view controls, gallery view versus speaker view, and spotlighting. So these are three different things. So what you see right now is the Zoom master has actually spotlighted myself, Nicole, and Ray, meaning that if somebody else actually was off mute and they spoke, it is not going to switch over to show them. If you're in speaker mode, you notice that I've got the yellow bar that's around me because I'm speaking. If you're just in speaker mode and somebody goes, what will happen is that the camera will, inadvertently go boop over to that person, and then it takes a second to get back to the actual speaker. So this is why it's important to learn how to do spotlighting. Switching between the online and in-person speakers obviously makes sense. You're either going to be switching between the camera or switching between a person who's spotlighted on Zoom or switching into the in-person camera. We've talked about spotlighting, gallery view for in-person speaker, and then there's standard view for slides. So as you can see right now, we've got these slides up on the screen, and you've got the three of us, Ray, Nicole, and myself, on the side. So that's how you can actually balance off in doing those things. So again, this is where it's important that we have somebody who's online and somebody who is in person so they can actually moderate what's going on and how we're going to switch back and forth. It means that those two people are probably on chat to each other privately, not to everyone, but privately back and forth going, okay, we're going to be switching to the online speakers. So are you ready to go to Spotlight, et cetera, et cetera. It just needs to be a coordinated. We talk about this being a television studio. Think of these people being the actual studio directors. It's like, okay, camera two, we're coming to you and live. This is the kind of coordination. And Ray's been talking about this ever since day one when the hybrid committee first got together and trying to teach people the importance of a Zoom master. And everybody freaks out going, oh my gosh, I don't know all this technology. And I'll put my hand up. I'm one of the dinosaurs in the room. So it's those types of things. Get comfortable with it, play with it, have several people in your club who become familiar with it. I know in my club, what we're introducing is actually a role. We've got the VP of Ed, VP of PR, you got your Sergeant of Arms, and we're going to have Zoom Master, and it will be something that is taught and trained so that a number of us can step in at any time. Nicole, you've got something to add to that?
I do have something to add to that. And this is a simple, easy way to start coordinating who's going to be doing what in terms of your in-person and online Zoom master. How many of us have ever been to a Toastmasters meeting and we get something called the agenda?
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes, right? But an agenda, it doesn't matter if it looks as marked up as mine, is a great way to discuss between all of the Zoom masters. Okay, so first up, we've got For example, I was in a District 86 deck meeting this morning. We had Sue Story, the district logistics manager up first. Who's going to make sure she's pinned? Moving on to our district director, Myrna Barth. Who's going to make sure she's pinned? Things like that. Yes, your agenda is going to change at the last minute. We all know that. Life happens. But use your agenda to your advantage. Print it out. Paper, I know. I mean, I like paper, but print it out. Write your notes right on there and keep it with you throughout the meeting.
Yep, definitely. Okay,
Yes.
we've got 10 minutes, so let's go to the next slide because we want to take some of the questions that are coming in.
Okay. Well, I think we have some time left. Okay, maybe. Hold on. Let me switch. There we go. We're now moving online to the Sergeant at Arms online.
Yes. So what's the most important thing, Nicole?
Claim the host.
Exactly. And what does that mean? You get the key, the host key from the account provider. And so a lot of people, you know, like Nicole and I were like, well, where is that? And of course, this is where we brought Ray in. And Ray's like, oh, you guys. Okay, we'll tell you how to find the host key. And he gave us this little tip here. It's you go to the account provider, we'll visit the profile, meeting, and host key. And Ray, are you able to show us that on there? Or is that something that we'd have to walk somebody through individually?
Well, we'd have to walk through it individually with to show. However, if you do go to the most recent video on the District 96 YouTube channel, I'll post a link into the chat. That is a step-by-step instruction on how to claim host as a Zoom master. And claiming the host is
on the screen.
It's on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we just don't have the link.
That is the link I just posted into the chat. Is the link to that YouTube video, which I posted up on October 16th. So it's about 2 weeks old now. Awesome. And you can see it's got 44 views, which is actually kind of high for a video on our channel.
Good.
As long as it's coming in. But that is the first step. And that could be the online Zoom master or the in-person Zoom master. It does not matter. What is the key important thing is one person, at least in your meeting, has the title of host. And if you look in the participants panel, it's going to say that our D96 feedback, that person is the meeting host. That means that they can mute you, they can turn your video off, they can boot you out of the room. And that a person with that role is important, especially if you get somebody in the meeting who is unaware that they're unmuted and talking on the phone, or if you have somebody who gets into the meeting who does not want to participate into it, but wants to disrupt the meeting. You need to have somebody nearby to assist with that. That's that.
Sorry, I want to interrupt Ray, not because I want to interrupt Ray, but I'm going to move on to the next slide because Doug is talking about, Ray, I did it again. Ray is talking about some of this stuff. Why you claim the host?
Yep.
So like Ray was saying, security. Enable the waiting room. I believe that's under the security badge. That way you can let in people you want to let in. For instance, if you see Nicole Hollis in your waiting room, you might say, oh gosh, no. And say, no way, we don't want that woman around, right? Muting and unmuting speakers, spotlighting speakers. This is really important, spotlighting speakers. I'm just going to really quickly talk about the difference between a spot and a pin. A pin is something you can actually do yourself. I may decide that I really like the way that Gene Vickers looks today, and I want to pin Gene Vickers. No matter what I'm doing online, I can just look at Gene Vickers and go, I like Gene Vickers. But maybe everybody doesn't want to see Gene Vickers. The Zoom master can decide, just like they're doing now, they want people to see myself, Ray, and Doug. So all three of us have been spotlighted. So no matter what you do, unless you completely shut off your screen, I'm here, baby. I'm here. And then, of course, it's the other. I'll let you speak now.
No, I was going to say, and you can troubleshoot. So if you've got somebody who is a guest or somebody who is less proficient in Zoom, and they're on the chat going, how do I do this? And I can't figure out. You can actually have private chat, but you need to monitor the chat. And sometimes
Yes.
we even talk about having a chat master. The two
Yes.
Zoom masters might be going back and forth, but the chat master, if you want to have a third person, and let's be honest, not all clubs have a lot of people. So, the online person could also be monitoring the chat, but that's where you're going to be able to find out, is there any concerns? What questions are coming up? And then be able to work with the in-person when question and answers are happening. There might be people in the room who got a question and you're going, great, I've got 6 questions that are online. Can I go next? And it's like, yes, you can go next right after this question. And you go, great, we've got a question that's come in from Bob or Sally, and they would like to know blah, 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 whatever the case may be. But there's nothing worse than being a guest and, putting your hand up in the room, and nobody calling upon you. I mean, it's very hard not to be called upon when you got your hand up, but try putting your hand up on Zoom. You've got 18 other little pictures on there. My question got buried 18 deep in there.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the types of things. But what is the very bottom one in bold? Greet members and guests.
And
Oh my
yes,
gosh! Can you
definitely,
imagine
definitely.
somebody
This
coming
happened to
into your
me.
in-person meeting? They're not a member because you don't even recognize them, and you ignore them. That would
Yes.
never happen at an open house. But how many times does it happen online where people get in and go, I don't know. We talked about having this background. When you're having an open house, it's great to have this background for all your members. So it's easy for the online Zoom person. Actually, Ray, we just got told in the chat that that one has not been approved yet.
Mm-mm.
So
You
I
need to
don't know.
switch your background, Ray.
So having your members have this background
Good.
easily identifies, like we could look at it, and between Ray and I, we know that Nicole is a guest, and your Zoom master can go, welcome, Nicole, I hope you're going to have a great time at our open house. We'd like to get some information about you in maybe offline chat and contact you as to when you would like to get started with us. Those types of things.
Definitely.
That's the most important.
Definitely.
It is the greeting, and it is even more important. I hate to say it this way, but it's even more important to greet guests online than in person, because the in-person guest can actually go up to somebody and say, but it's really hard, or most people online are a little bit hesitant, unless you're somebody like me. You just kind of go, hey, good morning, Nicole. I'm a guest here and have no idea what the jack is going on, but can you please let me know?
Of course.
Most people aren't going to do that. So it's really important. Greet your members and your guests. Let's go on to the next slide. What do we got?
Let me see if I can get to the next slide. Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
you can
during the meeting.
Right. So monitoring the microphones. Nicole talked about this and Ray talked about this, having background noises.
Oops,
The
sorry.
last thing you want to do
Oops.
is, here's somebody, the dog barking, or it's like, no, Johnny, get down from there. I told you once, don't bite your sister. You don't want things like that happening. So you need to be on those microphones all the time, making sure that they've been turned off. Maintain dialogue with the in-person Zoom master. We've talked about this over and over and over, how you're using chat, getting back and forth. And of course, you're the chat master, or you've identified a chat master that somebody in the club can go, I'll do that. I'll participate in the meeting, but at the same time, I'll just keep an eye on that chat and have it up on the corner. Because that's what I love about when you click on the chat, it gives you that pop-up window and you can move it anywhere and you can size it anywhere. Right now, I've just got it over Ray and Nicole, so I don't need to see them. But
We're moving on.
that's the kind of thing you want to have. What else, Ray or Nicole? What else do we
Oh,
need to know about people in online in meeting?
I'm actually going to move on to the next
Sure.
slide, Doug.
Yeah.
I'll just take that. Talking about, don't hate me for this, I'm a lawyer, so yeah, I'm going to get legal speak here. But if you decide, first of all, the nice thing about online meetings, you can take these great screenshots. You can then use them to promote your club on Facebook. You can even take a video, just like we're doing today. We're recording this segment so that people who don't see us in person can still come back and listen to us talking about hybrid meetings. But something very important, make sure you get permission from everybody to take their shot. So for instance, as you can see on this slide, we've got my dear friend and everybody's dear friend, Janice here. Oops, that is not what I wanted to do. Sorry, I'm going back. Anyway, in one of the shots, we've got Janice. And let's go and play this from the current slide. See, that's what happens when you're talking and not following your fingers. We have Janice. Okay, let me just do this quickly. This here is Janice. As you can see, we can see Janice's lovely face. But of course, there's other people in the room who did not want their faces to be included in the screenshot. So all you got to do is find, some people use this. You could use the Toastmasters logo. You could use a little happy face. It'll take a little bit of time afterwards to do the editing, but this way, you don't have to worry about that person's shot or face showing up. Of course, other things you can do, like I said, alert them beforehand. Yes, Zoom will pop up. For instance, when we started recording this section, Zoom popped up a little note saying, we're about to record if you don't want to leave. But if you're anything like my dad, you see something and you're like, yes, and you have no idea you just ordered 300 pieces of paper from a mill in China, right? Do not assume everybody is going to read those alerts. Announce it. You can also say to them, you can shut off your, stop your video, mute yourself, and there you go. And I don't know why I put presentations with slides on this.
Not sure either. Okay, let's wrap this up so we can get to some of the questions. Have we got another slide, or are we? Is that?
I think we're just
the last one?
I think it's just like a wrap up. Just bear with me one sec.
I know why you put presentations with slides on it. And very quickly, the reason you put presentations with slides on it is if you do have presentations with slides that are being recorded, it needs to be somebody other than the videographer sharing the slides.
Yes, yes.
That's what it is.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we're just here.
Again, you can't double up.
Exactly. I just wanted to reiterate that. So this is just the quick wrap up here. The in-person, you're controlling the room microphone. You've set up the room. You've made sure that all the sight lines are good. The sound lines are clear. You know, you adjust the controls on the display. And then if you're online Sergeant at Arms / Zoom Master, always claim the host. Then you can spotlight people, you can monitor the chats, and you can get rid of bad apples like me. The last slide, Doug, is just our information, our email.
Yes. Okay, why don't you leave that up so if people want, they can take a screenshot of that, or they can copy it down, whatever the case may be.
Sounds good.
Let's get to some of the questions that are in the chat. Let's go back to the very beginning, and I will probably pronounce this wrong, so please excuse me. Shay Watanabe, hopefully I've got that pronounced right. Do we need a dry run? Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely look at doing a dry run. It just helps you to make things go. You know, Nicole and I did this last night. It's like, where do you want to speak? Do you want to speak? Do you want to do this conversational? Do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? So we had a bit of a dry run last night before we did anything.
Exactly. Then we've got
Vincent Lai had asked a question. What is the minimum number of members you need to show up? What if the club doesn't even have that many members that are showing up? Minimum numbers, I would have at least 3 people in the room and 2 people online. So if you've only got 5 members that are coming, I would divide it that way. You know, not exactly half and half, but I would have more people in the room than online. But make sure that you do have an online presence, and preferably at least have one of the execs online. You know, because that then really gives an understanding that this is coming from top down, that you're supporting hybrid meetings. Mary Lee Miller, can use a laptop screen for the Zoom participants to see the room and speak, then use a mobile phone for good sound for anyone speaking. Ray, what's your thoughts on that?
The answer is yes. And it depends. So as was mentioned before, if you're using a mobile phone for good sound, just make sure that it's very close to the person that's doing their speech. And also have that being the only microphone within the room that is broadcasting onto Zoom. You can have separated sound from a phone and the camera elsewhere to be on different screens. That is your Zoom Master's responsibility to make sure that even if your audio is coming in from a non-video source to make sure that the video that is actually feeding to everybody to see is the correct video. So if I was for instance, speaking on Doug's camera way up at the top, but my audio is coming from this screen, you would want to be pinning Doug's video, not my video, because my audio would be coming through a different source. So identify clearly. Using a laptop, that is really going to depend how many people are in the room and how many people need to be able to see the screen. So it's really a trial and error thing. If you try something and it doesn't work, then the next time try it differently, and hopefully it works differently. And that's the thing. There is an element to trial and error. You're going to try something. It's not necessarily going to work perfectly the first time you do it, and it'll work slightly better the next time you do it, as long as you take those lessons learned each time you do a hybrid or on open house or any meeting. Really, every hybrid meeting you hold is a dry run for how you can do it better.
And I'll just reiterate what I said earlier about being the talking head, because I was on a laptop and I'm not so sure even how the people in the room saw me, because I would meet with the executives later and they said, well, if the laptop wasn't in front of me, right in front of me, they couldn't see me. And you put imagine this, your laptop screen's only about this big, you put it at the front of the room, somebody sitting, no one's going to see it unless they're right up against it, right?
Yep. Projector or monitor.
Vincent asked about, I'm going to answer this because I've seen people do it. Share slide as background. I've seen it done, Vincent, with some meetings. Imagine this, we've got the hybrid committee slide up, maybe down in the right-hand corner, you would see my head. The problem I've seen with these, I think quality can be iffy. Ray probably has a better answer than me, but I like when I've seen it, I like the idea because the person is there. It's almost like you're talking to them and the slides are behind them, but I find the quality is not really good.
I'll add to that as well. You want to think about using slides as a background in the same way that you might think about if you're watching a movie or watching a news broadcast when you have picture in picture. So you'd have the host. You need to make sure that your camera is positioned correctly so that the information that you're showing in that slide is still available and viewable. What I do find happens when somebody's using a slide as a background is they'll be talking here and all of the information is going to be behind them. So you're not really getting any useful information off of the slide. So that really becomes an important question to ask when you're thinking about, okay, where am I standing in front of the camera? And where is the information going to be provided that I'm speaking to? So that becomes really a thing that you want to speak to in terms of camera positioning, slide setup, and you actually almost want to visualize that in your head while you're delivering the presentation, because using the slide as a background, you want to make sure that the talking head isn't blocking the useful information that you're speaking to when it comes to that slide.
Hey,
there's another question that came up. It's a really interesting one. Questions for presenters: when you're playing multimedia elements like movie clips, etc., commercial music videos during a Zoom meeting, what licensing authority do you engage to pay for the performance rights?
Good question.
I don't know the answer to that question, although for a meeting that isn't being recorded and isn't being reshared publicly beyond, I don't know if we have any question. Michael Gurney might have some useful information that he can share with us later about if there is actually legal implications for it. I mean, if we're sharing, yeah.
Okay, don't quote me, and I'm not considered, I'm just speaking as a regular person here, not a legal authority, not that I consider myself a legal authority, but when in doubt, go with something free. When in doubt, double check everything. If you're using, let's say, something off of YouTube, make sure you acknowledge that this is a YouTube channel. And because you never know. I know Michael Gurney was working on something, I can't remember what it was, and he got dinged. He got a message that said, hey, this is not a free recording.
Yeah.
That you have to pay to use this recording. So be careful. Be careful.
different licensing issues in different regions as well. For instance, the opening ceremonies, Michael put us together a really great opening shot for it. When it was uploaded to YouTube, it got basically, it wasn't a copyright strike, but it got it was a copyright claim from the person who actually owns the rights to that. It didn't affect the video actually being viewable, and our channel isn't monetized, so it really doesn't matter. But that is a thing to bear in mind as well. I mean, if you would be playing music in a house party for a group of your friends, that's kind of almost what it's like when we're having a meeting online. If it's not being recorded, if it's not being broadcast out in public, then I think we have some discretion in that.
Okay, before we remove it, I just want to answer this question really quickly for Yumuko King. Sorry, Yumuko, if I'm not saying your name right. There's no difference between host and co-host. You can have multiple co-hosts. They all have the same ability in terms of Zoom. It's not.
It's just who gets to the host first.
Exactly. Who gets to the host first, and then exactly, it's a race. Yeah. But there's really no difference.
There is a specific difference between host and co-host, is the host can assign co-hosts.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
co-hosts do not assign themselves.
Yeah. Venice is asking, what program do you use to put the cover over the face? You can use Photoshop. Well, no, nobody has, it's too expensive. Try even just the paint on, okay, I have just a little laptop. I take a picture and then I just use my paint tool or my picture tool, and I try and figure it out that way. Like Yuri says, any pictures editing application, Canva, you can use whatever. Okay, so let's just keep on going down. We use a meeting break to take photos. Members not wishing to have photos have option to turn off their video. Okay, that sounds great. Sorry, I'm just going to scroll through. Are we allowed to record speeches with Toastmasters Zoom accounts?
I can answer this one.
Okay.
Toastmasters Zoom accounts are enabled for local recording. Do not do them for cloud recording, because you will have to reach out to the Zoom, to the district Zoom master to be able to get access to a cloud recording. However, you're not going to be able to record the meeting if you don't claim the host. So when the host account gets claimed, when you use the host code, then you will have recording as an option. But if you're just everybody logging into the meeting as just members in the meeting, then you will not be able to record anything. You need
Ray, for people like me, what is the difference between a cloud recording and a local recording?
Cloud recording means that Zoom will record the meeting, whatever it is that you're recording, in the background, and save it to the actual Zoom account on a cloud account. Okay. The Zoom account has a specific amount of data available for cloud recordings, but we're not really set up to.
Can I set it to do local then?
Always local. Yeah, you record locally.
For that?
Yes, it'll give you the option when you click record. And what happens is when the meeting ends, then Zoom will stay open and it'll compile all the videos and then save it. And it'll ask you for a location as to where you want to save the recording on your computer.
C drive on my computer.
Yes, you save it to the location on your computer, and then
that's what I need to know.
If somebody is going to edit it and repost it as a YouTube video or something later, or share it out, then that person needs to actually send that video out to the next people who need to use it.
Perfect. Okay. I often, when I'm talking technical things with people, I often say, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Lego block, Lego block.
My boys know that, don't.
The dumbed down version. The dumbed down version. I have a key point here from Michael Gurney. This is very important when it comes to recording.
The last one, because it's 11:59. We're cut off at noon.
I know. Well, it's 2, but Michael Gurney says, remember, a house party is a private event, whereas Toastmasters meetings are in theory public. So be careful when you are recording things. Who are you sharing them with? But if you have any questions about recording things and legal stuff, call a lawyer, but not me. But we can always, you know something, you can always send me an email and I will get in touch with TI and I'll get you an answer if you have questions about that. And one last thing is, Shi Watanabe, I am going to suggest to you that you contact one of us on the hybrid committee, because you're asking about how much you need to spend on a hybrid platform. Do you need social distancing? Yes. That is really up to your local health department and also where you're meeting. Remember, you probably will want social distance at the meeting where you're meeting. That makes no sense. In the venue, the local, where your people are meeting physically, definitely check with the venue. For instance, one of my clubs meet at a church, and they have made it very clear what is allowed and what is not allowed. But in terms of how much to spend, contact us because we can help you out there.
There we go. And that is our time. It's 12:01. We've gone 1 minute over, and I'm sure the timer is going, oh, when are these guys going to stop? Great. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you guys. And please, as Nicole said, contact us if you've got more questions. If we didn't answer your question here, I'm sure we can get that up onto our hybrid page, which is on the D96 website. We now have a page on there with all sorts of information.
Yumiko, please email me and we'll get your answer. We'll get your question answered. We don't have the time now, unfortunately. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Yumiko.
And we pass it back to Charito, our chair.
Thank you for watching this video on the Toastmasters District 96 YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel to watch replays of our volunteer-run workshops, contests, and other events that are happening in our district. Like this video to show your appreciation for the volunteers who work hard to run these events. And remember, we are all volunteers. Thank you.